Prepare to get gas, because it's time for the Week in Gear, the only show where you can go from violently stripped back metal guitars to battery-powered budget modelers in less time than it takes to tune a 12-string guitar, which is forever. This week, Jackson strips away absolutely everything that doesn't make a guitar sound heavy, Wampler crams 2 legendary amplifiers into one goldeny green box, and Valeton puts an entire rig right in your pocket. Backpack. This week is sponsored by Radial Engineering. More about them in a bit. Now, before we start the gear list, I feel uncomfortable saying this, but I need your help. We've had some great sponsors for the Week in Gear, and we consistently have great sponsors for the show, but I would love to make this a 100% audience-supported show. And if you look forward to TWIG every week, or if you've ever smiled because of it, or if I've helped you discover a pedal that completely derailed your savings account, consider supporting the channel or the show through Patreon or YouTube membership for essentially the price of a cheap cup of coffee a month. There's absolutely no pressure. I do feel uncomfortable asking, but if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you do want to join the inner circle and help keep the gear and the fun and the silliness flowing, the links are right down there below, and you can pause the show and do it now if you want. I'll still be here when you get back. That's my pause face. Thank you to those of you who just did that. Thank you. Now, let's kick off this week's most exciting gear releases with a guitar that wants you to stop turning knobs and start shredding. If you've ever looked at a neck pickup and thought, well, that's just getting in the way of my picking hand, and versatility is for losers, well, Jackson has heard your worries. This is the new Jackson Pro Plus Pure Metal Stealth Series. It's a long name. For 2026, Jackson have launched 3 new limited editions. The Soloist SL1A, the Kelly KE1A, and the one I think we really need to talk about, the Rhodes RR1A in satin black. Now, the entire concept of the Pure Metal series is maximum shred, minimum distractions. It is stripped back to the absolute essentials. Now, this is far from a new concept, but I do think that Jackson have done this with some fantastic aesthetics. If you want to stand at the back of the stage and shred and not be noticed, these are the guitars for you. You get a poplar body with a 3-piece maple neck-through construction for that classic Jackson sustain, and unhindered upper fret access. Especially on this one, there's literally nothing stopping you. Well, depends how big your hands are. The fingerboard is ebony, and it features a 12 to 16 inch compound radius and 24 jumbo stainless steel frets. Really ticking them off the list there. Now visually, the stealth vibe is real. It is fully decked out in satin black with an almost invisible grey body binding. There's black hardware, and the only thing that really pops out against the darkness are the classic pearloid shark fin inlays and the loom inlay side dots, if you really are playing in the dark. But the electronics are where this guitar makes the biggest statement. There's no pickup selector, there's no tone knob. Instead of an active pickup, the Stealth series is loaded with exactly 1 bare-knuckle Holy Diver humbucker in the bridge. That's wired straight through to a single volume knob, and then you throw in a recessed Floyd Rose 1000 series double locking tremolo for your obligatory dive bombs, and you have a weapon. Prices are around 1,400 notes, but as always, please click the links in the video description and comment the price in your region to help each other out. Thank you. These prices are absolute, sometimes fiction. They are, approximate. There we go. This guitar is normally nothing for me personally, but I like the idea of a black sort of cat stealth look. The biggest drawback, however, is for me the poplar body, which I'm reluctant to get fully on board with because it is such a soft wood, and when Fender has used this in the past, things like the scratch plate screws, if you take them out, they don't properly go back in again because the wood seems to just disintegrate. I'm not saying that's the case for these Jacksons, but that's my experience with Poplar a lot of times. Your mileage may vary. If you play jazz, look away, quick. But if you want a guitar that does exactly one thing and does it whilst staying incognito, the Gasometer is a solid add to cart. Let's keep it metal. If you love the performance of a Jackson, but prefer something a little less pointy and a lot more versatile, I've got you covered. Charvel has just expanded their extremely popular Pro-Mod Plus lineup with a fresh batch of DK24 models. They've introduced a bunch of new variations, including a brutal new 7-string HH model, which also looks classy, and an HSS version, 6-string, but back to the one that really caught my eye, is the DK24 HH2P2EQM. Whew, let's decode that alphabet soup, shall we? That means it is a dinky body shape made of basswood with a basswood. There's a dual humbucker setup, a 2-point tremolo, an ebony fretboard, and a gorgeous quilt maple top. The finish looks like you could dive right into it and swim a few lengths. And it is fittingly named Chlorine Burst. And no, I'm not really into quilted tops and all this fancy schmancy stuff normally, but there is something about these product photos and the video that makes me go a little bit weak at the knees. Weird. Charvel basically owns the semi-official hot-rodded Strat category, and this guitar is exactly why. You get a caramelized maple neck with graphite reinforcement and rolled fingerboard edges. This is premium stuff with that name on the headstock. Tonally, you're getting a custom Seymour Duncan full shred in the bridge and an Alnico 2 Pro in the neck. Combine that with a 5-way blade switch and a mini 2-way toggle for parallel switching. Jackson says this thing can go from pristine glassy cleans to absolute roaring leads in a second. Finish it off with a Goto 510 tremolo and you have a guitar that should survive any gig. More than survive it, should thrive. Any genre, any night of the week, I think this guitar would fit. And I would love to put this up against my Ibanez AZ. Depending on the finish and the configuration, these are landing right around the 1,300 notes mark, which is not a small chunk of change by far, but this kind of price is becoming the norm for the bigger names, and that's how it is. I don't think we're going to go back from that. For a workhorse shreddable instrument that also delivers on fancy schmancy looks, with these specs, the Gasometer is firmly at a buy it now. I really like it. Whew. I need to calm down. Let's have a sponsorship segment. If you've got a bunch of guitar pedals lying around, it seems almost a waste to just plug guitars in. You could plug a synthesizer in, or a bass, or a thumb piano, or a microphone. But plugging a microphone into a guitar pedal is not an easy task. Well, Radial now have the Voco Loco Mark II, which allows you to do exactly that. If you plug a mic into the mic input, then send some guitar cables from the send to the input of a pedal, and then from the pedal to the return of the Voco Loco Mark II, and then send your line out to a recorder or speaker, you get this. A rather fuzzy sounding vocal. That's probably not that useful, but we can do something else. There we go, that's beautiful. So you can put your voice through anything. And you don't just have to sing through a mic. If you want to put reverb on your acoustic that doesn't have a pickup, or put some crunch on some drums that you're miking up, you can do that. And you can do it live on stage or in your room, because the Voco Loco Mark II just takes 9 volts to power it and can be powered by any of your regular power supplies for pedals. So I'm going to have a full review of this coming very soon on the channel. I can't wait to plug even more pedals into it and make some noises. Possibly a gonculator. But yeah, that's the Voco Loco Mark II. It is proudly sponsoring this episode of TWIG. There are links in the video description if you want to know more about it. If you can't wait for my review, go and take a look in there. Coming in at number 3, we have Brian Wampler doing what Brian Wampler does best. Cramming stadium-sized amplifiers and all these doohickeys into tiny boxes. This is the Wampler Golden Jubilee. Wampler has been making legendary amp-in-a-box pedals for years, but the Golden Jubilee is a little bit special because it's giving you two completely different titans of tone in one dual foot switch enclosure. I'm pleased with that sentence. Titans of tone. Woohoo! On the one side, you have the overdrive channel, and this one is taking aim squarely at the British side of the pond, giving you that sort of crispy, aggressive, high presence roar of a hot-rodded Marshall Plexi. It seems touch sensitive and sort of fat in the mids and very Marshally, and for want of a better term, it sounds like an expensive amp. Brian has made a release video, and I thought we could kick back for a moment and take a listen. Enjoy.
Let's give it a try.
On the other side of the pedal, you have the distortion channel. This circuit is heavily inspired by the thick, burly, articulate crunch of an early Mesa Boogie Mark II. And that sounds like this. But some magic seems to happen when you use them together.
Let's kick them both on.
One of my favorite things is that Wampler have included a toggle switch in the middle, which allows you to run the Mesa side into the Plexi side or vice versa. And if you add in an independent volume, tone, and gain control for each amp, plus there's character switches for each channel, and well, you basically have a 3-channel boutique amp sitting at your pedal board. Kinda. And I know this is ridiculous, but look at it. This premium evergreen sparkle finish with the gold anodized hardware is stunning. And for the guitarist that loves shiny things, this ticks all those boxes. The one confusing thing about this pedal is if it really needs to exist. And I'm not trying to rain on this release, as I really enjoy the sounds that Brian made, but Wampler already have a lot of Plexi pedals. But as far as I know, this is the first Mesa Boogie Mark II pedal Brian has directly set out to nail. I just wonder if it would have made more sense to just release the pedal that does the Mesa Boogie sound. I do love double pedals where you can switch the order so that it makes sense, but there are so many Plexi pedals on the market that I would love to see this Mesa Boogie Mark II in one of Brian's mini pedal formats, and at a price that reflects that. The Golden Jubilee is launching at around 240 notes, which for two legendary amp voicings and Wampler's build quality and history, I think is a reasonable price. For some, this is going to be maybe the only drive that they need, but in a world of thousands of overdrive pedals, I'm not sure if this one is going to make a big enough impact for most players. The Gasometer is therefore recommending you wishlist this. At number 2, we are looking at the budget multi-effects market, which has just received a massive upgrade. You might remember Valeton dropping the literally pocket-sized GP5 last year and its slightly bigger battery-powered brother, the GP50, both of which I have and both are superb for the money and more. Those were incredibly popular ultra-compact units, but now Valeton have announced a slightly bigger one with slightly more stuff in it. Meet the Valeton GP150. Now this is a significant leap forward in processing power. It's got more of it. The brain has been completely upgraded and it features a 24-bit 48 kilohertz signal processing signal chain and a brand new DSP. See? Told you. This means that the amp modeling and effects should sound significantly better, although the old ones also sounded good, but I'm still dying to try these. And they should respond more dynamically with the extra headroom and just more than the previous generations. You can also now run up to 12 effect modules simultaneously, and it was 9 before, I believe, which you can also now control via the 2 onboard foot switches and the built-in expression pedal. But the real, dare I say it, game changer is the built-in battery, which yes, the GP50 has, but the GP150 features a frankly massive internal 3000 milliamp hour battery that gives you over 6 hours of playtime. And it supports USB PD fast charging. You can literally throw this in your backpack, take it to the park, plug your headphones in and jam for hours without ever needing a wall outlet. Not that you would find one at a park. Tree Evolution is still letting us down on that one. Valeton kept the input-output simple but highly effective, including stereo outputs, an auxiliary headphone jack, and full USB audio interface capabilities. And for the price that lands in the highly affordable sub-200 notes category, this thing is going to sell by the absolute truckload. I love my GP50, I love the GP5, but now they seem a little bit old hat, really, as the GP150 offers a much more enticing DSP and sort of everything list, which I think is where Valeton are muddying the waters. The GP5 has a clear audience for tiny pedal does a lot people, but the price difference between the GP50 and the GP150 and the GP180 is relatively negligible. There is a GP180, which I've failed to mention so far, because the GP180 is very similar to the GP150, but removes the expression pedal and adds a 3rd foot switch. I think that's the only difference between the two. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Anyway, I'd love to get the 2 new models in-house, in studio, so I can compare them, but right now my money's on the GP150. The gasometer is on a solid buy it now. Almost wallet on fire, but the wallet's not quite on fire because I'm already so enamored with the GP50. But click the subscribe button and I'll bring you a GP150 versus 50 at one point very soon, I promise. Thank you.
Andy's Pick of the Week.
And finally, and sheepishly, we have arrived at my pick of the week, which I've picked not because I would buy it, but because it gives me serious gas. So, grab a packet of Tums and let's talk about the Gibson Custom Gary Clark Jr. ES355 in Cobra Burst. Look at it. Now, if you're a fan of modern blues, you probably know Gary Clark Jr. And if you know Gary Clark Jr., you know he has, I would say, impeccable taste in many things: hats, clothes, music, guitars. And after his signature Epiphone Casino and the Gibson SG, which I'm still gassing after, the yellow one with the 3 pickups, he has teamed up with the Gibson Custom Shop to recreate the new #1 workhorse. That's what they said on the website. According to Gibson, Gary was inspired by seeing B.B. King perform, and this is his ultimate tribute. It is frankly one of the most beautiful semi-hollows I've ever seen, ever. And it is so far out of my usual guitar choices, this feels somewhat like it ought not to be my pick of the week, but it is. And it's important to stay authentic. So here we are. That was my reference to that video. This 355 features a 3-ply figured maple, poplar, and maple body, which is finished in that stunning VOS Cobra Burst. The mahogany neck has a 50s rounded medium C profile. We're getting there with the thicker profiles. And because it's a 355, you get the premium bound ebony fretboard with mother of pearl block inlays and the custom split diamond on the headstock and all the rest of the fancy schmancy stuff. Hardware-wise, it is decked out in VOS nickel, featuring an ABR1 historic no-wire bridge and a Bigsby B7 vibrato for those subtle bluesy flutters. It's also loaded with a pair of unpotted custom buckers. Yes, some of my favorite pickups, with, of course, Alnico 3 magnets. But they didn't stop there. It also features a mono Veritone circuit with a black chicken head knob, giving you access to those classic sort of scooped nasal BB King tones with the flick of a chicken. This is all wired up with CTS audio taper pots and paper in oil capacitors. So this is a full-on Gibson tone fancier / snake oil fest. It's a marketing dream. Here is the heartbreaking part. The custom shop in Nashville is only making 100 of these worldwide. And to break your heart even further, because of the extreme limitation and the custom shop badge, it comes with a terrifying price tag. You won't get much change out of 10,000 notes if you want to pick one of these up. Ouch. I think it might be the most expensive guitar that's ever been my pick of the week. Now, these sorts of expensive and fancy guitars don't usually affect me. The full bells and whistles Gibsons, it's not something that normally makes me excited. And of course, the price is ridiculous. And if you just want a guitar, you don't have to spend anywhere near that sort of money. But there is something about this model that ties it all together that makes me excited about all guitars. This is a bedroom postal guitar. This is a teenage dream. This is a Katy Perry. There is no way that I would buy one of these Gibsons, and I'm not sure that anyone that watches this channel would buy one either. But we can still be excited about it, right? It's an absolute masterpiece. If it was a Les Paul, I wouldn't have even looked at it twice. But in that big old semi-hollow body, it just does it for me. So it's off the list. We've talked about it. It's gone from my brain now. Whew. Unless, of course, I win the lottery this weekend, which I don't even play, so that's unlikely. But let's put the gasometer firmly at a borrow it. A huge thank you to the Patreon supporters popping up on your screen right now. Hello there! And a huge hello there! And thanks to the YouTube members who are on screen now. Thank you, everybody, all of you. I appreciate you. Now remember, I do have a dream of taking this show to where it is sponsored only by you, the viewer. And if you enjoy the show and would like to get me closer to that dream, the links to support the show and the affiliate links are in the video description. And there's some stuff in the first comment as well, probably. It's getting harder and harder to enable you to enable me to enable you. YouTube is doing their best to capsize the whole ship. Anyway, here's a special shout out to the top tier members. Antonio Cruz Barreto, Buddha Blue, Boom Shakalaka, Buzzle, Dirk, Doug Paget, Yindrik Strelka, Johnny McBadminton, Coulter Matt, Mike Lute, Andrew Morgan, Darius Lives, Gary O'Neill, holy moly, that's 8675309, Josh Tamberg, Mandude Bro, PQ Deads, Robin Kelly, Sarung Narayan, Southern Panda 33, and a newcomer, Sarah Marie. Hi, Sarah Marie. Thank you, top tier members. Right, subscribe button is down there somewhere. Use it wisely. I will see you next week with some more ridiculously great gear. Bye-bye! And we're out! We're out! We're out! We're out!